Okay, hello and welcome back to Mike's Place. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a chapter, but um, you know what? I was gonna talk a little bit about my issues. I have nerve damage, like the nerve, my right leg is completely messed up, and the nerve was cut down by my foot, and now I have problems all the way up the back of my right leg. Um, Along with that, I have been experiencing more sleepless nights than you could imagine. Last night was one of those nights where I couldn't fall asleep, and when I did fall asleep, I kept tossing and turning and waking up. Um, I described this to other people as I do drink coffee sometimes, but I drink coffee and I cut that off at like 9 or 10 in the morning at the latest. And when I have these episodes where um, I can't I can't rest, I can't sit still. It's like I'm irritable, I'm angry, I full of energy. It's nerve damage. It's associated with the sun too. I know people probably are like, "Oh, you're crazy," but the sun puts out air pressure and electrical pressure, and when your nervous system is damaged, your nervous system will be like sensitive to the solar phenomena, and that's exactly what I'm experiencing. If you were to look at images of the sun from yesterday, I believe there's like a big coronal hole passing, and a lot of times sometimes they don't, but a lot of times the coronal holes do cause me to have some strange issues. The issues are like either the sleepless nights where I feel like I've drank too much coffee and I can't relax and sit down and rest, or um, I have the muscle atrophy episodes in my legs where my affected leg muscles just wither away for no reason over a few days. It's very painful and it causes me to be very, very tired. It hurts to stand up and walk or to do anything really. Um, I guess that's about it. So I'll just go ahead and go into the topic. And today's topic's going to be about choices. And not just choices, but we will have choices, reaction, and response. So for this exercise, we're going to have two different options for our choices. Not really like two options, but I mean you have many options. These are more like the way that you're going to respond to the choice that you make, react or respond. And if you look right here over on the right screen, I have event plus response equals the outcome. Now you can have, a lot of times they just list that as E plus R equals O, and then you could have your event plus your reaction and then have an outcome from it. And you can also have your event plus a response and have an outcome from it. And what we're basically going to do with this section is just learn the differences between the reaction and response choices. So just move right down here. Choice, this falls under noun. And for the descriptions, definitions, I have a choosing or selection. So that's just a choice. You can choose between more than one thing or select between more than one thing. The right or power to choose, I guess that's when you exercise your right to have a choice. You might exercise that through protesting or just like, what do they call that? Talking it out. 3 says a person or thing chosen. So that's just your choice, and if you were to be choosing a thing, your choice would be the thing that you chose. And number 4 says the best part of, and that basically refers to choice as being like usually a lot. They use that with dogs and horses as like choice breed, maybe the best part, or a choice cut of meat, the best cut of meat. So that's basically choice is the best part. 5 says a variety from which to choose. Obviously, that's just a choice when you have a bunch of different options. And an alternative. Now, that's a funny one because if you're not given an alternative, you really don't have a choice. And if you are given an alternative, you do have a choice. And even if you weren't given an alternative, you could still ask for an alternative, and then you would have a choice. So sometimes that would be a way of exercising your choice as well. Under adjective, we have of special excellence, which is it's basically like the best part of, like a choice cut of meat or choice breed of animal or something like that, of special excellence. And the difference between the noun and the adjective for these is just the way that choice is being used in the sentence. So if you're using it as a thing, then it becomes a noun. But over here, if you're using, if you were to like choice breed, then you're describing the breed as being choice, and then you're using choice as an adjective to describe the breed, which is a thing. So it has the same meaning as the best part of, even though the words are being used slightly different and slightly different in the sentence. Adjective, carefully chosen, number 2. That's just choice and choosing, and then they're focusing on doing it carefully. Next we have reaction, and this falls under noun. 1 is a return or opposing action, etc. So reaction, if we were to look at this word, we could actually take this word and we can take off this prefix re, which means to do again, and we have action. So whenever you do it again, you have a return or opposing action. That would be you reacting to a stimulus that's outside of your personal space or your person, meaning that you would be returning the action back to something else, whatever the stimulus was, a person or a thing, or maybe you're playing a game or something like that, so you react to the ball coming at you. Number 2 is a reaction as to a stimulus, and that's basically just you're reacting to something that is going on around you. 3 says a movement back to a former or less advanced condition, and I don't really use a reaction like that, but you could say that you were taking action by doing something, and then you could step back away from that to maybe your setup that came before, maybe it was a better setup or something like that. So they're just saying in the sense of an action that you're doing again, but you're changing it slightly. Reaction, a chemical change, is number 4, and that is just referring to in science whenever you mix certain chemicals together that you can get a reaction where it could turn into gas and expand, it could start a fire, anything. It's chemical change. Now we have react as a verb, and that just means you're using it as some sort of an action or modifier in the verb place. And number 1 says to act in return or reciprocally. So you react. To act in return is to react. You would be responding to something or somebody. Maybe somebody hit you or something, you're reacting to it. Reciprocally means opposite of. That's usually a word that's used in math for whenever you take a fraction and you flip it upside down and you have its reciprocal so that it is its opposite, and when you combine these opposites, they cancel each other out to one, or a whole, one whole. So to act in return or reciprocally, and that just means like you're returning the action back to them in the same way. And a lot of times, so in this exercise, we're going to use react as like a kind of like a negative way of going about making a choice and making a choice where you have to respond to something or react to something. To return to our former condition or stage, react. They're just saying to redo it again, and they're using act as in like acting, like a actor, dancer, or something like that. Number 3 says to respond to a stimulus, and when you stimulate something, you just basically maybe do something around it to cause it to move or act, so you stimulate it. When you react, it's just responding to a stimulus. I don't like how they use respond there, but I'll leave that. Number 4 is in chemistry, to act with another substance in producing a chemical change. So that's, that goes with this up here, reaction as a noun. Now we have response, and response is a thing. It's being used as a noun. Something said or done in responding, a reply, is number 1. So that would be in the sense of you're responding to maybe something someone said to you, and you do that through a reply. Maybe in the sense of the response is a positive action, and you were friendly with the way that you approached and open about the conversation. You didn't yell. Versus maybe somebody said something that you didn't like, and you reacted in a way that was without thought. You just kind of you just used what you knew from your past, what you were taught. Usually that's like, I wouldn't call them skills, but if you were taught to mistreat people as a child, then possibly you'll be mistreating people again. Let's see, something said or done in responding, a reply. Number 2 says words sung or spoken by the congregation or choir in answer to the clergyman. And I didn't know you could actually use response for this, but it must be in reference to a congregation or choir. I'm not sure how that meaning works. I never heard it used in that sense. Number 3 says any response to a stimulus, and that's just responding to something that's going on around you. Now we have verb and transitive for respond, and one says to answer or reply, just meaning that you're like responding to something, you're doing an action here. Number 2 says to react as to a stimulus. Again, you're just reacting as to something that's going on. Life is a continuous struggle. The choices we made in the past have a definite effect on what is going on with us in the present. By taking a look at how we are leading our life, the decisions we make, both good and bad, we will make a judgment. Are you leading your life today in a way that brings you peace? Are you happy with the circumstances you find yourself in? Could you live more carefully? So those are really good questions. And in all of those, you would have choices that you would have to make, and those choices could lead to either positive or negative outcomes. So the questions are for you to answer. Enter into the mainstream that is your own life, which affects the lives of others, friends, family, and associates. Choice, the act of choosing. Power of choosing. Option, a person or thing chosen. The best part, cream, which is the best part. A sufficient number, a variety to choose among, or care in selecting. This is just another little collection of definitions and descriptions for choice. Basically, they're the same thing as the definitions above. Origins of life choices. As a child, many of our choices are made for us by our parents or caregivers. We are told what to eat, what to wear, where to live, when to go to bed, and when to get up. When we are adolescents or teens, we begin to make choices as an expression of our independence from our parents. We choose who we hang out with, typically what we wear, how we behave at home and school. Sometimes we lead a double life, one for home and one for school. Most of our choices are learned by watching others. When we are adults, we have total control over the choices we make. I know that it might not seem like it, but the reality is that we make choices based on past experience or belief and develop patterns that may be good for us or bad for us. I do like that. I like that how they point towards past experiences or belief, and your choices anytime in your life, but more so when you're an adult. The choices you make are usually based on I don't like the word programming, but as a child when you're taught things, like you're literally programmed like a machine, like a computer. So if you're programmed incorrectly, then you will possibly make poor choices. You possibly might react to situations, and with that reaction you don't really think about what you're doing, and you act out with violence, or you act out with aggression, or you act out with maybe a violence that's not physical, but it's more like words or action, not action, but more like words. How choices affect our lives. We go through life making choices guided by our past accumulation of learning and baggage. So those are our that's our collection of things we were taught when we were younger, or possibly things that we were just taught recently. And it's basically like this ethereal bag that exists that you can't see, that you carry around, and it has all these terrible things in it that you've been taught and you do to other people, possibly you do them to yourself even. So I guess the point would be that we want to learn how to stop and think before we make choices, and we don't want to just like react with what we already know and continuing on maybe like violence or something like that. The second one says, how we treated life and made choices in the past has a great effect on us throughout our life. Most definitely, if you don't take life seriously and you make a bunch of stupid choices when you're younger, you could possibly end up not able to walk. Maybe you ended up with drug addiction problems or something like that. In my case, like I had kids when I was really, really young, so that was a choice. Like I chose to do what I was doing, and then I had kids, and I'm 40, and I've had kids since I was a teenager, basically. Number 3 says, what we learn today, coupled with our past experience, can change the choices we make for the future. And that is definitely not only a positive comment there, a positive statement, but it says a lot in the sense that no matter what you were taught in the past, you can still learn today, and then you can use that to make better choices in the future. My mouse is messed up, sorry, that's why that happens. I'll get a new one eventually. Choice is the determining factor as to whether or not our lives run their courses on a straight path, or they meet with pit stops and obstacles. If we liken our lives to highway travel, we find that there are many aids along the journey. Signs are there to tell us the proper route or interstate to take, to warn us of impending dangers such as dangerous curves, falling rocks, or bridges out, to give us information such as construction zones for the next 5 miles or railroad crossings. We can make the choice to heed these signs or not, which will determine the outcome of our journey. Our choice can take us straight to our destination, or we can choose to take the long way around. The long way might consist of us going through an alley, taking a wrong turn, making a U-turn, or getting off at the wrong off-ramp. And life is a lot like that too. Like you might make some choices while you're young, and then it'll affect like maybe getting a job as you're an adult or something like that. So it could cause you to take the long way around in your life to getting anywhere and being anything. Many of these mistakes can be avoided if you start now to make wise choices. And I wanted to comment on, while we're right here on the word wise. I learned this. I learned this some years ago from some really good people that I had the chance to meet and get to know while I was away on places where I wasn't supposed to be. So you can be intelligent and you can know things like you're knowledgeable. You know these things. You know certain things. Maybe you're knowledgeable about certain topics, but you don't really become wise with wisdom until you learn how to take the knowledge that you learn and apply it to the world around you. Then you become wise with wisdom. So, just a little heads up. I like wise. I like wisdom. Remember, choices are the determining factor in which highway your life follows. Not one choice, but each choice you will ever make in your life is very important. Each choice you make in your life is very important. Each choice you make determines what happens next in your life. The choice is yours. Be careful and wise with each one. What a difference a choice makes. So now we're going to move from just talking about choice to the reaction versus response. And so what we're doing is we're going to take choices, we're going to split these choices into good choices and bad choices. And we are going to call our good choices responses to the stimulus, because the response, it means to stop and think and then to act in a way that is based on knowledge, or maybe some sort of lesson that you learned, instead of just acting out on like being aggressive because you were maybe hit as a kid or something like that. And then the react is, you don't really put a lot of thought into it. You just redo something that you always did, like you're programmed to. If somebody says something rude to you, you just automatically start fighting with them. So you don't really make much of a choice there. There's no thought. You just redo what you've always done. So that's the difference we're gonna try and distinguish between the two words. And just basically, it's just going to be like good and bad for choices. What do you do about choices? A choice can be a response to life, not just a reaction. In the past, you may have reacted to every event in your life based on what you were taught. To take control of life, change needs to take place. Move from reacting to events to responding to those same events. A reaction is an emotional reflex. So when you react, there's no thought and it's all emotion based. And a lot of times, emotional based situations can be a little difficult to deal with, because in the sense of, like, if you're in a relationship with a lover and you start having problems, it's not the same as just arguing with a common person. There's a lot of feelings involved. Like, there's possibly the love that the two feel for each other, or maybe they've talked about their pasts with each other, and each person knows that there's been something bad that's happened to the other one in their life, and so there's just a lot of emotional content and emotional criteria that goes with the reaction. A response is a considered action. So you're taking time to stop, you're taking time to think, and then you're considering how to act, how to respond. Now, I wasn't able to take the word respond and break it all the way apart. Obviously, is to do again. Sponse, I'm not really sure how that translates or what language it comes from. It has a meaning, I'm sure. It's possible it's more than one word, too, so I didn't actually do that part, but it probably has the meaning of just conscious thought to it, or something like that. Considered action. It takes a lot of practice for one to make that important change. Take a look at this explanation. Event plus reaction equals what you get wrong. So that's event and react. React is bad, you get something wrong. So we'll look at the other version in just a second. Only when we look at our lives in retrospect do we see the big picture. We see how the choices in the past have been a reaction to the conditions around us. Moving out of the immediate need and seeing what effect our choices cause can give us a new perspective. Many Native American tribes made decisions based on the long-term impact. In fact, they looked forward 7 generations before making a decision. That's a lot. That's probably 700 years about. How would their method affect the decisions we make today? Honestly, if we look that far into the future, it would probably be a good thing. I would say to look 3 of those 7-year periods into the future, because then you would be able to see 2 complete solar cycles overlap and all of the overlapping smaller cycles in between. So if you were to take all these things into consideration, plus more, obviously, there's obvious more, you're looking at the long-term impact, and then you can make better decisions for the long term. How would their method affect the decisions we make today? Economically, environmentally, socially. Make choices in your life that respond to events with consideration of and an eye to the future. So we restate the same explanation in another way. Event plus response equals what you get right, because you're taking the time to think. You're gonna maybe that thought process is going to involve some of the content that comes from this video series. Just basically trying to give you information to see your way through the situation without it becoming violent or turning like negative in some way. So the outcome will be different if you respond and not react. To make significant kinds of change, to make different, better choices, and meet life with a response rather than a reaction, we need to think about ourselves, who we are, how we feel, who and what are important to us, the choices we have made, that would be in the past, where they have taken us, and whether we wish to change some of that. We also need to think about the choices we will make in the future and the direction we wish our lives to go. Our choices affect the direction of our lives. We must learn to be reflective when it comes to our emotions. Reflective means that it shines it back out. So with our emotions, we must learn to be reflective when it comes to our emotions. Not sure exactly what they mean there. Maybe they're meaning express them and so that you can make better choices. I'm not really sure what they mean. We must be able to imagine the outcome of our choices. That's just like taking what you know that you're knowledgeable about and looking into the future. To take control of one's life, one must develop the skills of considering one's actions before moving on to a situation. This is a thought-out course of action, not an emotional reflex or an involuntary reaction without clear thinking, without rational thought. To help cultivate and strengthen this skill, we need to learn to make responses, not reactions. So I guess this just goes back into reacting and responding again. Okay, now we'll move down here to reacting. Letting the habit self jump out, doing it right away, or acting on your feelings. Letting the habit self out, and the habit self is like basically you've done things over and over again. You've developed a way of doing it that your brain doesn't really, it's not even really involved in the action. It just does it. And these habits could be good habits, like if you're at work and you got to repeat the same process over and over again. Obviously, if you develop a habit of doing it correctly, that's a good thing. But in the sense of in a relationship, if like you were taught to just say nasty things to people, and somebody says something to you that you don't like, and you immediately react by letting your bad habits come out and saying nasty things to people, then you're definitely letting your habit self out. Doing it right away, that's just implying like doing it without taking a little bit of time to think through and maybe try to figure out what the outcome would be based on your knowledge. Responding, when you don't act right away or just act on your feelings, that's responding. I don't really think that acting on your feelings is responding. I think it's more like reacting. I'm not sure why that's there. When you have thought through a situation and you are open to seeing it in various ways, so that's just showing you took time to stop and intelligently look at the situation and think through multiple scenarios that could possibly come out of it. And seeing it in various ways, I guess that's just saying that it's like a positive thing. Like you're not going to settle. If it doesn't go this way, then I'll get upset or whatever. It could possibly go several ways. None of them are really bad or good, so it's not really a problem there. That's going to be it for today. And again, that was choices. And for choices, we just basically took the good and bad choices and we turned them into reacting, which is bad. There's no thought process. And responding, which responding is supposed to be good because we're taking time to stop, think. When we stop and think, we might be looking back through our knowledge that we have to make a intelligent decision about the situation. And that's going to be it for today. Thank you for joining me again, and give me a thumbs up if you like the content. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see the rest of the video series, and have a good day. Thank you, and see you next time.